Hello and welcome. Today is Wednesday, April 15th, and it would be an A day if we were still in school. For today's video, I want to go over a literary term that is frequently used and kind of answers the question of why do we have to learn about this in ELA? And that literary term is allusion, and that's allusion with an A, not to be confused with illusion with an I. So, what's an allusion? Well, it's a reference to something of historical, literary, or cultural significance in another piece of literature. So let's see if we can break that down a little bit more so it's a little easier to understand. Anytime an author wants to add more meaning or context to whatever it is he or she is writing, they will use an allusion to tie into another piece of literature or tie into a historical event or cultural piece so that when the reader gets to it, they can bridge those two pieces, make a connection, and get a deeper understanding. Now, the problem with that for students, particularly as you get, in the earlier grades, is that if you don't have a very broad background of literary and historical and cultural events, you oftentimes miss those references, those allusions. So it can be difficult when you start reading literature to pick up on those things. And when that happens, you miss that extra layer of understanding and meaning that the author is intending for his or her readers. So that's part of the reason why in ELA classes, we tend to cover things that don't on the surface seem important or related. In my class, I tend to cover a lot of historical things and cultural pieces, and my students sometimes ask, why do we have to do this in ELA? And that's part of it, right? I want my students to be able to understand those allusions as they come up in the things they read. The other part, of course, is that they all fall under the umbrella of humanities, for which ELA is a part of. But understanding allusions is important to really get a deeper meaning for what it is you're reading. And allusions are not just limited to literature. We see allusions in everyday pop culture pieces, in movies and so forth, right? Whether it be songs you're listening to, which might have allusions to things that happen in history. I know that there have been, albums named Machiavelli and so forth, which is a historical reference to, the Prince. There are movies like Prometheus, which came out about 7 years ago, science fiction movie, which is a reference to the Greek mythology story. So allusions are used frequently. The difficult piece is, of course, building that background knowledge in order to get those references. Now, how do we use allusion as a verb? It's a word we're probably more familiar with, and that's allude. You are alluding to something. You're making a reference to. So when an author is alluding to that historical or cultural piece, they're making an allusion. All right. So again, in order to fully grasp whatever allusions are being used in literature, we have to broaden our historical, cultural, literary knowledge base. And that's part of why you're always encouraged to read so much. It can be difficult at first, but as you start to read more, as you start to build that background knowledge base, you'll start to pick up on more and more of these allusions. And sometimes, you start to notice it now, particularly students who make it through middle school and are entering high school, you'll start to pick up on these things. You'll start to have those little aha moments as you're reading. Oh, wait a minute, that's referencing something we learned about before. And that's how allusions should work. So allusion, it's a great thing to understand that reference to some other piece. The more you read, the better you'll be at for understanding those things. You got to be patient with it though, so that you understand that it's something that comes with time. You'll understand more and more allusions as you read more. And that's it for today. I hope everyone's doing well. Again, if you have a question or suggestion, please leave a comment and I'll do my best to cover that. And until next time, be good.